Maybe see. Hello, bonjour, quoi. Welcome and bienvenue everyone to this important event today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're in the Magmagi, unceded traditional territory of the Magma people. We're privileged and thankful to be holding this event today on land that is covered by the historic treaties of peace and fellowship. I'd also like to acknowledge the existence of people of African descent in Nova Scotia for over 400 years. May we honor and offer gratitude to the ancestors who came before us to this land, and let's not forget their impact on Canada as we see it today. Now I'd like to ask everyone to please stand while Adana Fraser Marsman will sing our national anthem, O Canada, followed by Lift Every Voice and Sing, the Black National Anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicings rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling seas. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Maybe see it. Wow. Can she sing? Yeah. Thank you very much. I mean, if you don't have a manager, just give me a shout. Hello, everyone. My name is Captain Kevin Junor. I'm an officer in the Queen's Own Rifles of Canada, and I am very blessed and privileged to be the MC for today. It is a very important event, and we're very glad that you're here to celebrate with us. In addition to those individuals who will be speaking today, I would like to acknowledge the presence of the many family and friends and descendants of the No. 2 Construction Battalion who have joined us today. As well, we're joined by Major General Paul Payton, Miss Lesha Leo, who is also with us from Parks Canada. Not only that, but we also have the Chief 1 Officer for 4 Div, who's here with the Div Commander. I'd like to, at this time, first open with prayers from Padre Tom Hamilton, who is the Brigade Chaplain. Padre.
Today we honor the remarkable journey of the soldiers in No. 2 Construction Battalion. Their service and sacrifice began here in Pictou in July of 1916. It was here that they received their initial military training. It was here that they also left a lasting impression on the people in this community. The soldiers participated in local baseball games and community sing-alongs. And when 10-year-old Russell Hayden fell into Pictou Harbor, it was a soldier from No. 2 Construction Battalion who immediately jumped in and saved the child. Decades later, citizens of Pictou spoke positively of the impact the soldiers of No. 2 had on the community during their training in Pictou. These same soldiers went on to have a lasting impact as they served overseas during the First World War and endured not only harsh conditions, but also racism and injustice. And so we take time today to honor them for their service and their sacrifice. As we dedicate this memorial, I invite you to join me in prayer or use this time for personal reflection. Loving God, today we remember and honor the soldiers of No. 2 Construction Battalion who began their military journey here in Pictou. As this plaque is unveiled, we dedicate it. May it serve as a lasting reminder of the service and sacrifice of the soldiers of No. 2 Construction Battalion who trained here. May it also illuminate as a beacon of hope and unity to inspire future generations to uphold the values of those who served with integrity and courage, to fight against racism and injustice, and to defend the dignity of all. And this we ask and pray in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Padre. It's always important for us to begin with a blessing from the good Lord. I'd also like to call on Mr. Darrell Sampson, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs and Associate Minister of National Defence, and Member of Parliament for Sackville, Preston, Chesapeake, to bring greetings on behalf of Minister Stephen Bilbo.
Thank you. Hello, bonjour, kwe, to all of you, and of course to distinguished guests. It's an honor to be here today. I want to start by acknowledging as well that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and that this land is covered by the historic treaties of peace and friendship. Je veux d'abord souligner que nous nous trouvons sur le territoire traditionnel non cédé du peuple des Mi'kmaq et des terres, et que ces terres sont régies de la traité historique de paix et d'amitié. I would like first of all to thank the Black Cultural Center and the Executive Director, Russell, and of course the Board Chair, Brenda Francis, that's with us today, for their leadership, not only in HRM, not only in the province of Nova Scotia, but right across the country. And the pandemic showed how virtually they can show strong leadership. I also want to share with you that the Member of Parliament, Sean Fraser, couldn't be here today, but it's an honor for me to be here on his behalf. And I want to thank Sean for his hard work and his leadership, and the fact that he's Minister of Immigration takes him away from his riding, from the province, and from the country at times. And I want to thank him for his advocacy in recognizing the importance of the 2nd Construction Battalion, which is so important. He's a strong Member of Parliament, and I thank him for his good work, of course. And I want, of course, to thank our Minister, Stephen Guilbeault, for his leadership, as well as Minister of the Environment and Climate Change and Parks Canada as well. Today we officially welcome the number 2 Construction Battalion to Canada's family of commemorated places, peoples, and events. And it's a national historic, of course, significance to Canada, and we'll see why as we celebrate today's important event. I cannot think, honestly, of a better place to honor the 2nd Construction Battalion than standing right here among you at the very wharf, of course, that your unit was first headquarters when it was established on July 5th, today, 106 years later. This segregated battalion served with the Canadian Expeditionary Force during the First World War. These soldiers played a vital part of Nova Scotia and Canada's history as a remarkable legacy of fighting for the right to serve in the military for their country. This was the only ever segregated unit to exist in our armed forces. While many people of African descent volunteered to do their part and to serve the military after Canada joined the First World War in 1914, most of them were turned away because of racist assumptions that they were unfit to serve. It took ongoing pressure from the African Canadian community to help force that change, the creation of the segregated unit. The Black Battalion represents the adversity faced by African Nova Scotian and African Canadians at that time and ever since. It also represents the preservation and the personal and community at the personal and community level. Not only did these men serve their country, they did so with a tenacity and courage that defies social norms and prejudice of the time. For over 100 years, the story of the number 2 Construction Battalion has been a source of pride for the African Nova Scotian and African Canadian community. But, regrettably, this story has not reached the larger Nova Scotian and Canadian audience. It is the Government of Canada's intention in reaffirming this designation that we inspire a new generation to understand the service of the number 2 Construction Battalion as the ultimate act of allegiance through adversity. It is our privilege to live at a time in history where there is tremendous focus on equality and human rights. And I know our Premier is with us, working hard to support all Nova Scotians. The number 2 Construction Battalion reminds us that this was not the case, and of the important contribution of the racialized people in building the Canada of today and tomorrow. On behalf of the Government of Canada, and following, of course, the recommendation of the Historic Sites and Monument Board of Canada, I am very proud to commemorate the number 2 Construction Battalion's significant role in Canada's history. The battalion's legacy in Nova Scotia and the African Canadian community represents the endurance of Black Canadians who confronted prejudice and inequalities to make a place for themselves in Canadian military. The historic designation commemorates all aspects of Canada's history, positive or negative. I encourage all Canadians to learn more about the 2nd Construction Battalion and its important contribution to Canada's heritage and history. May we always remember the service and sacrifice of the Black Canadians who fought so hard to serve in the First World War. Imagine for a second, just imagine, these individuals fought for the right to serve Canada. Think about that. Fought for the right to serve their nation. I would like to thank the members of the Historic Sites and Monument Board of Canada for their hard work, which led to this designation. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Wula Rio. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, MP Darrell Sampson, for those kind words and the words that allow us to think about who the number 2 Construction Battalion is, what they represent, and how they've impacted our lives in Canada. At this time, I would like to invite the Honourable Tim Houston, Premier of Nova Scotia, Member of the Legislature for Pictou East, Nova Scotia, to deliver a few words of remarks. Premier.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Honored guests, family members, active service members, retired service members, and certainly Russell and the team at the Black Cultural Center. Thank you all for joining us to be here this morning, and thank you for your commitments to stronger communities. It's certainly my honor to join each of you for this special unveiling ceremony today, and to do it on behalf of the province and with my colleagues in the legislature, Minister Carl McFarland, the MLA for Pictou West, the MLA for the town of Pictou. She's a powerful voice in the legislature for this area. Thank you for joining us, Carla, and certainly Minister Pat Dunn, my colleague in the legislature, the member for Pictou Centre. Thank you for your commitment to the province, both of you. Thank you for being here. But to each and every one of you, friends, it is good to be home in Pictou County. And let me assure you, the sun always shines in Pictou County. It's good to be here with you today. Today we pay our respects to the more than 600 brave Canadians of African descent who formed the number 2 Construction Battalion. And we acknowledge the existence of people of African descent in Nova Scotia for over 400 years. So we know that with their existence for over 400 years, you can bet that many of those 600 brave Canadians were from Nova Scotia, and many were from right here in Pictou County. So these brave men selflessly stood up for freedom, even when their own country resisted their service. As Darrell said, think about that. Try and put yourself in the emotions that they must have experienced at that time. But they pushed through it, and they did what they knew they wanted to do and needed to do, and they stood up for their country. We are appreciative of their service, 100%. And the wonderful plaque today that we're unveiling, commemorating these soldiers, is another step in righting this historical wrong. The racism these men endured before, during, and after their service to our country is truly devastating. Our government is committed to eliminating the systemic barriers that, unfortunately, still affect our communities even today. And this requires us to continue working together in creating initiatives and acknowledging the contributions made by people of African descent to Nova Scotia and to the Nova Scotia that we know today. We are grateful for their contributions. The history of the No. 2 Construction Battalion is something we all need to continue to understand, to acknowledge, and to respect. And this monument will forever remain a symbol of courage, a symbol of determination, a symbol of resilience, a symbol of the more than 400 soldiers who sacrificed their lives, put their lives on the line for us, for the quality of life that we enjoy today in this province and in this country. The town of Pictou and the Black Cultural Center hold many ceremonies honoring the No. 2 Construction Battalion and their families, and today is a fitting tribute and continuation of their records, of their efforts to acknowledge the contribution in this region. So I want to thank the Black Cultural Center. I want to thank the members of the African Nova Scotian community, and I want to thank Parks Canada and each of you for being here today to make this ceremony possible and to recognize and respect and acknowledge the contributions of the No. 2 Construction Battalion. Thank you. Appreciate being here today.
Thank you, Premier, for those great words, showing your leadership in recognizing the men of the No. 2 Construction Battalion and the Black communities and their strength and legacy in this great province of Nova Scotia. At this time, you know, it's great to have a Premier, it's great to have the MLAs, but when you talk about the mayor, you talk about somebody who is just doing it right downtown, doing it in their own backyard. So at this time, I'd like to invite Mayor Jim Ryan, the mayor of the town of Pictou, to speak to us.
Thank you, Captain Junior. That's a lot of pressure. And if you'll notice the program, I've been given 1 minute. Descendants of the soldiers of the No. 2 Battalion, platform guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the town of Pictou. It is indeed my honor to be here representing the town of Pictou in commemorating the 116th anniversary of the formation of the No. 2 Construction Battalion, and to remember those brave men of strength for their patriotism and determination. These soldiers are not only remembered for service to their country, but equally as important for their determined battle against the prevalent racist attitudes of the times. The upcoming national apology for the unacceptable treatment they received is surely long overdue. When I hear the town of Pictou mentioned as the initial home of Canada's only battalion that consists only of black soldiers, I personally experience an immense sense of pride. Although they spent only a few months in our little town in 1916, they will continue to reverently be remembered among the brave Pictonians who served our country. The ceremony of remembrance that takes place on this spot each year was initiated 29 years ago through the efforts of Senator Calvin Ruck. It has become and will remain a very important event for our community. On behalf of the town, I would like to also thank the Black Cultural Center, Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada, and Parks Canada staff for their continued efforts in keeping this important part of our history alive. It is greatly appreciated. For those of you who are visiting our community, I ask you to take the time to walk around and enjoy what we have to offer and to return many times in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan, for the wonderful words and for the invitation to come back. And we will take you up on that. At this time, I would like to invite to the podium Ms. Brenda Francis, the board chair for the Black Cultural Center, for Nova Scotia to speak. Brenda?
Good morning, everyone. I too want to recognize that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded territory of our Mi'kmaq First Nations brothers and sisters. Honored platform guest, descendants and friends of Number 2 Construction Battalion, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here this morning as a representative of the Board of Directors and staff of the Black Culture Society and Centre of Nova Scotia. And I want to acknowledge a couple of our executive members that are here as well. Mr. Merv Broom, First Vice, Ms. Twyla Gross, our Treasurer, and as well Russell Gross is I think everyone knows Russell in this province. Russell's our Executive Director, and Ms. Raelle Williams. So thank you for being here as well. We converge in Pictou today to honor the men of Number 2 and to witness the unveiling of this beautiful interpretive monument depicting historical accounts of these courageous, determined, patriotic men. Men who are no longer categorized as Canada's best kept secret. Today their stories are being told nationally, and we work to have these men recognized internationally. They are our national heroes, deserving of the recognition, accolades, and valor bestowed upon them by the Canadian government, Canadian military, descendants, family members, and society. The Black Culture Society and Centre are proud to have been part of this journey for over 2 decades, and will continue to partner and collaborate with the federal, provincial, municipal governments and agencies, the Canadian Armed Forces, and others to ensure the legacy, the men of Number 2, will be preserved, protected, and promoted throughout this nation and beyond. Thank you, and we will remember them.
Thank you, Brenda, for those kind words, and also to your expression of the partnership that the Black Culture Centre has always had with all levels of government and stakeholders. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you Ms. Lindsay Ruck, a descendant of members of the Number 2, to just speak to us a little bit about Number 2. Lindsay?
Thank you. Distinguished guests, family members of the Number 2, and everyone joining us in person and virtually, good morning. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here today for this very special unveiling. For me, there's a lot of nostalgia around today's event, a lot of emotion, and I'm going to try to keep it in. But as an author, I always like to tell a story, so I'm going to tell a brief story to take you back to when I was about 6 years old. And I took a day trip to Pictou, a beautiful sunny day like today, with my mother, my father, and my sister. And my grandparents, Joyce Ruck and Calvin Ruck, they were also part of our caravan. And when we arrived at the waterfront, I remember a sea of people. I also remember big, beautiful hats that some of the women were wearing, and I was drawn to those. Some of you are wearing them today, and I was drawn to those hats. I also remember my grandfather, Calvin Ruck, standing next to a monument that you see behind us. well, so many people took, for what 6-year-old me seemed like hundreds of pictures that took hours and hours to take, and I was getting hungry. But I was so proud in that moment. I remember seeing the smile on my grandmother's face and on my grandfather's face and on all the onlookers who I could also see they felt that pride and they were experiencing that moment together. Many assume my grandfather was a veteran of the war, and most likely this is because of his passion and determination to tell the story of the No. 2 Construction Battalion. But he was not. He did, however, share other commonalities with these war heroes. Much like these men of the No. 2, my grandfather fought daily battles of racism, of discrimination, and of prejudice. He could relate to their story because he knew all too well what it felt like to be treated unfairly because of the color of his skin. In 1986, his book called The Black Battalion, Canada's Best Kept Military Secret, and you're right, it's not a secret anymore, which is wonderful. It was published and it was released. That was also the year I was born, so it was a very big year for my family. The book was the product of countless hours of my grandfather sitting at his dining room table in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, piecing this story together like a puzzle. With no option of a simple internet search, he spent his time digging through documents and archives, and he spoke to historians, and he began to scribble down names and dates, and he slowly uncovered this incredible story of strength, resilience, and heroism. The snowball effect from that book is extraordinary. And for some of the descendants of these men, including my grandmother, whose uncle was part of the battalion, which she did not know until my grandfather started doing this work, it gave them a piece of family history that they did not know existed. He was determined to give these men the dignity, the honor, and the platform that they rightfully deserved. The plaque and the interpretation panel is another very important piece to that puzzle. So I'd like to thank the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada and the Black Cultural Society for creating a permanent and highly visible form of recognition that says the story and these men will never be forgotten. I know I speak on behalf of my whole family when I say how grateful I am to those who continue to uncover more information about the Black Battalion and those who have already done so much to further their legacy. I personally feel that part of my responsibility is to ensure that future generations know about these men, and this form of commemoration will help continue to do that. It will allow another 6-year-old me, much like myself in 1992, to walk along the wharf, to stop, to ask questions, and to find out more. It will remind us that the No. 2 Construction Battalion is not Black history, it is Canadian history. It is our collective history. And the men of the No. 2 were proud Canadian soldiers. They fought for the right to fight. And everyone gathered here today is a sign that those efforts were not in vain. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. It takes something to stand before a group of people, potentially the entire nation, to tell a personal story. And as a people, that's what we do. We sit down together and we tell stories, and we hope that the stories will continue. Our final speaker for the day will be Mr. Bernard Thériault, a member of the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada. Monsieur?
Mr. MC, distinguished guest, descendant of members of Construction No. 2, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored and before starting the most serious part of my speech, I want to tell you that at the Historical Board, we have a yearly contest in which we try to brag that we've attended the most exciting and the best unveiling ceremony in the country. And I'm going to tell you something. This activity today is providing me, I guess, a sure win in this year's competition. First of all, I've seen here a very proud black community that is coming here strong and happy to be here. We have soldiers' costume with historical sites, a few hundred people, and something that is probably unvaluable for points, a premier at the ceremony. So that you'll make me a winner. First of all, Mesdames et Messieurs, bonne journée. It's a great pleasure and honor to participate in this important event today on behalf of the Historic Site and Monument Board of Canada. As the New Brunswick representative on the HMSBC board, I'm here today to fill in for the Nova Scotia representative that is supposed to be appointed very shortly. Greetings and thanks to Dr. Nicole Neatby, who represented Nova Scotia on this board for the last 5 years and did a great job also on this particular document here. As we all know, this plaque unveiling is a pre-event to a far more important moment that will occur next week related to formal apologies to the descendants of the Construction Battalion. As well as the Canadian government, the board has put in place many measures aiming at correcting injustices, racism, and discrimination that so many visible minorities have been victims of over the years. Je suis également très ému de constater qu'à peu près à la même époque, la communauté acadienne des provinces maritimes, pour des raisons similaires, obtenait elle aussi un bataillon formé entièrement d'Acadiens français des provinces maritimes. Comme le bataillon de deuxième construction, un grand nombre de soldats de ce bataillon sont allés eux aussi dans les opérations forestières du Jura. At the same time that the Construction Battalion was formed, a French-Acadian battalion formed exclusively with French-speaking members coming from New Brunswick, PEI, and Nova Scotia were also finally directed to the wood-cutting operation in Jura. I just can't imagine that some of the Acadian of the maritime provinces have met and worked jointly with the black community member of the construction number 2 in those important moments. As the ceremony we have here today, this is a testimony of the resilience and the courage developed by various black communities, mostly here in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. Despite the racism the black community had to endure, they wanted very actively to play a role in the defense of this country. Thank you to every single members of the battalion, and thank you to all the ones that are making possible the fact that all Canadians will now be able to learn and remember this part of history. The HMSB board is also studying demands actually regarding the Jamaican Maroons and the black loyalists who settled here in Nova Scotia and later moved to Sierra Leone. Later on today, I will take part in another meeting to work on the inscription for the designation of Olivier Lejeune, the first African descendant who served as a slave in Quebec City between 1629 and 1632. I was also privileged a month ago to the day to attend the ceremony in Calgary for the recognition of John Ware, the first black cowboy that became an important ranger in this country and contributed to the development of the western part of this country. So, as it is part of my job, I will now read, I got to find it, read the content of the plaque, both in English and in French. And from there, I guess the MC will proceed to do unveiling. Number 2, Construction Battalion, Canadian Expeditionary Force. This battalion reflected the strong determination of black men to overcome racism and contribute to Canada's First World War effort. With battalions reluctant to accept black people, militia headquarters formed in 1916 a segregated non-combatant unit. Volunteers from across Canada, the United States, and the Caribbean were based at Pictou and Truro in Nova Scotia and Windsor, Ontario, before going to Europe in 1917. They served primarily with the Canadian Forestry Corps in the Jura region of France, supplying lumber for the front and performing supporting tasks. The Black Battalion was disbanded in 1920. Le 2e bataillon de construction corps expéditionnaire canadien. Ce bataillon reflète la détermination des hommes noirs à surmonter le racisme pour contribuer à l'effort du Canada lors de la Première Guerre mondiale. Les unités étant réfractaires à accepter des Noirs, le quartier général de la milice forme en 1916 une unité ségrégée non combattante. Les recrues proviennent du Canada, des États-Unis et des Antilles et sont basés à Pictou et à Truro avant leur départ pour l'Europe en 1917. Le bataillon sert surtout avec le corps forestier canadien dans le Jura, ravitaillant le front en bois et effectuant des tâches de soutien. Il est dissous en 1920. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Alors.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my very great pleasure to invite the following individuals to join together in the unveiling of this plaque. Monsieur Thériault, MP Sampson, Lindsay Ruck, Major General Payton, Brenda Francis, and Premier Houston, please. I would ask that together you will unveil the Historic Sites and Monument Board of Canada plaque, and then move across the stone and unveil the brand new interpretive panel. The combined plaque and interpretive panel commemorate and tell the story of No. 2 Construction Battalion. So we'll start with, so if I can help here. So just for the camera, you good? There. So we'll do it on 3. We're good? 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Could I ask you? Thank you. Could you ask to move? Okay, the unveiling concludes the official portion of today's ceremony. I'd like to add my voice to what we've experienced today. If you look around, you'll see men and women in the uniform that was worn by Number 2 Construction Battalion. And if you look around, you'll also see black men and women wearing the Canadian Armed Forces uniform of today. It shows the journey that we've established, the journey we've been on. We have individuals that are not just in the engineers, but we have men and women who are sailors from the Air Force, from the Army, in the infantry. We're blessed to be where we are today, and it shows the progression of the Canadian Armed Forces that we serve in today. It has been my pleasure to be the MC for today, and there are refreshments that is served in the DaCosta Center for Arts and Entertainment, so if you can please join us over there. But please don't forget that on July 9th in Truro, there will be a significant event when the Government of Canada will offer a national apology to the descendants of members of Number 2. If you haven't booked your ticket, book your ticket. Bring a friend, because this is a historic event. Thank you very much for coming today, and God bless you. Yes.